What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Pick Six Podcast, CBS Sports Daily NFL Podcast. I'm Will Brinson. I'm your host. I mentioned this before, but I mentioned it again to celebrate football season. And to thank you all for being such a loyal listeners. By we, I mean I am giving away a 65-inch television. That's right. I'm giving a 65-inch television to one of you people. All you have to do is go to cbssports.com/pick6giveaway, and I will personally deliver it to your house. That part won't actually happen. But it's included. Debo will include it in the episode description, that link. October 25th. Go enter now. You can get a 65-inch television just for listening to this podcast. That feels like the bare minimum that you should be rewarded with. So go get it. All right, let's talk Thursday Night Football and do a DFS. The DFS preview of Sam Darnold and Brett Rippon with the one, the only, the legendary R.J. White. R.J., on a scale of 1 to 10, how excited are you for this Thursday Night Football game? And I would also ask you, should we refrain from criticizing this Thursday game after other possibly disappointing television events earlier in the week, like Chiefs Ravens?
I am a 42. This is the best Thursday game of the year. This is the one that's been circled the whole year. I know some people probably circled Chiefs Bills in a few weeks, but I don't see how you can't get excited for this game. Two amazing teams, two high-scoring offenses. It's going to be great.
Does Adam Gase make it to Friday?
Yeah, I would say it's too early to fire anyone. I'm not going to say he should make it to Friday, but you know, he shouldn't really be coaching the team at this point anyway, so.
Okay. Would you tell anyone to bet on this game?
You're going to bet this game. If you have to bet this game, make it like your minimum bet, just to, just for fun.
I mean, I really don't know how you bet this game unless I don't think you can, because the under is 40 or now it's 41 at William Hill. The Jets are -1. I don't think you can bet on the Jets. Just out of principle, I don't think you can look at this game and say, I have enough of an edge on the Jets that I'm taking the Jets and Adam Gase and Sam Darnold and Braxton Berrios. And the Jets' defensive line, I guess, hadn't been terrible, and they have some nice pieces on the offensive line, but you cannot bet on the Jets. And I think ordinarily this would be an under game, but I don't know that you can guarantee that these teams won't score 41 points, especially when you read Kevin Seifert article that I've referenced several times, where holding is down 60% and pass interference is up 22%. There's a lot of variables we don't really understand as gamblers that are in play right now.
And even just because it's two bad offenses, where there could be a lot of turnovers, there could be some short fields, there could be some pick sixes, and so all you need is one of those, and then a game that was going to go under because these teams were playing to a 19-17 type of game goes over. So it's kind of interesting to see that the market, it was at 40 and the market bet it up to 41. Because I think they're more anticipating the offenses to be so bad that it actually helps the scoring, because it just sets up with short fields and you're going to get a little more, turnovers and that kind of thing.
Yeah. I mean, you're if you take the under 40, you're betting that there won't be a stupid Sam Darnold pick six or that Brett Rippon won't fumble out of his own end zone. I mean, you're asking for it, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, I don't want to advise anybody not to gamble, but I think this is a don't gamble situation, right?
Yeah, the interesting thing is, at one point it was Jets -1.5, and I don't like to tease totals because, you don't get as much bang for your buck going 6 points on a total that's in the 40s or 50s or whatever, as you do with a line that's, around 1 or 4 or 7.
Sure.
But if you're going to that area that, okay, these are two bad teams, they'll be inept together, but you could see points scored because of these random turnovers. Why would you not tease the underdog up, especially if you're getting 1.5? You can get it over 7.5, and then the total down. So you're taking the over instead of 41 or 40, you're taking it at 34, 35. 34, 35 is extremely low, even for bad teams, and you got to figure it's going to go over that. So if you have to have action on the game, maybe you tease the dog wherever you get the dog, as long as it's not a pick 'em. In this case, it'd be Denver up to +7. And then you take the total and you take it down to 40 to 34. And I kind of like that a little more than teasing it up and taking under 47 or 46, just because, like you said, these penalties are kind of out of hand at this point. So we don't know that maybe some key penalties change this game and it gets to 50 more than it gets to 32,
All right. Let me ask you a question about this week, because I'm tired of talking about like this game sucks. I mean, and I don't look, I'm happy we have football. I hope that we don't lose any more football games. We've lost Steelers Titans for this week. I will watch Jets Broncos for the rest of time, Clockwork Orange style, if I need to preserve football for the rest of America. But what do you think about Pete Prisco's notion that you should take every over this week and parlay it, despite the fact that the totals are as high as we've ever seen?
Yeah, I think that's, at some point we're going to see the
Yes.
officials are cognizant about what's happening with penalties week in and week out. They always get on conference calls and they say, this is what we're doing wrong. This is what we're doing right. Let's fix this. Let's concentrate on this. So they know, these offensive holding and pass interference numbers you're citing, they know them. So at some point it's going to correct. Our CBS Sports research team said as of Tuesday morning, these totals are tracking to be the highest on record on average. They have the data going back to 1990, and these totals at that point were almost 50 points a game. It was like 49.98 or 95 or something like that. The previous high record was 48.5, somewhere around 48.5. I don't know exactly what the number was. So you're talking about betting overs into a historically high, slate. I think that's a lot to ask, especially knowing that these penalties will correct at some point. So I think the smarter play is to bet a bunch of unders and hope this is the week that they correct on penalties,
Now, if you miss, either way, if you miss, you're wrong. I mean, I think it's better to identify a couple of games. I do think it's interesting that like Broncos, we'll talk about this in our picks podcast, which is coming up later. For now, let's take a break. We'll come back and we'll talk DFS. We will do DFS. You will be playing the defenses and we will talk DFS. Okay. So, and by the way, I should point out some trends, because Debo puts in great research into the rundown, as always. Brett Rippon expected to make his first career start. The last 10 quarterbacks to make their first career start in primetime are 9-1 straight up and 9-1 against the spread. The Broncos 0-3 straight up and 2-1 against the spread. The Jets currently 0-3 straight up and 0-3 against the spread. The Jets, by the way, this is moved. The Broncos were favored by 3 points and the Jets are favored by 1. The Jets are the public team. Maybe we're wrong about what we said before. Maybe you just hammer the Broncos because everyone is betting on Adam Gase.
Maybe. Hopefully you guys subscribe to Sports Time, because on Monday night I had to get in on this game and take the Jets +3. So I gave that out as a pick to everyone at Jets +3, because the move was just inevitable. The Broncos didn't know who they were starting at quarterback at that point. There's no way you can take a quarterback in that situation with 2 days of knowing he's going to start on the road on Monday.
Justin Herbert had like 34 seconds. So
yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, and the defense didn't have time to prepare for him, and so yeah, Herbert covered that game, but I just don't care. Short week on the road, prime time. I don't think you take quarterback. You mentioned the 9-1 stat with first career start on Thursday night. I went back and looked through those games. It's a lot of situations that don't apply here. It's a lot of Jacoby Brissett getting to play with Bill Belichick in his defense. It's Deshaun Watson, who's obviously 18 levels above where Brett Rippon is right now. It's Nick Mullins, who gets to play with Kyle Shanahan. So it's a lot of these situations where you're playing with either a great coach, that schemes up something for you. You're playing with an elite defense in your back pocket, or those type of situations, and none of that really applies here. So even though the Jets are ugly, I like them at +3. I would still kind of lean that way, -1, but I don't love it obviously at -1.
It should be, there should be a prop bet out there where you can bet on the Jets Broncos to score more than the Ravens and Chiefs. Like, it's unfair that there's not one of those, but there are other props. Brett Rippon, total passing touchdowns is over 1.5 +180. His over-under for passing yards is 204. That is a laughably low passing yards total. His longest completion, 32.5. Usually you see like 40.5, and that's pretty long itself. That just implies they won't take any shot plays whatsoever. Sam Darnold total passing yards, 227.5. And Braxton Berrios is your number one total receiving yards leader. Oh, no, sorry. Jamison Crowder's playing. My man, Jamison Crowder, 54.5. Braxton Berrios, 42.5. Are there any props you would consider playing in this game?
Yeah, so let's start with Rippon. You didn't mention the interceptions number. The over-under for interceptions is 0.5, which it is for a lot of these quarterbacks, and they adjust the juice. The over here is only minus 125 with the under at plus 105. I was expecting to see a lot higher. I figure Greg Williams is going to bring a lot of pressure in this matchup. That's what Greg Williams does, and especially with this young quarterback, short rest, trying to do his first career start, I think he's going to get eaten up there, and he's going to put the ball in danger. Because either it's his arm gets knocked out because his internal clock isn't ticking to the right number, or he just rushes the throw and then a guy jumps a route. So I think it's a pretty good bet that we're going to see an interception in this game. Minus 25 isn't much to lay. And then you go to the other side of the ball with Darnold. I think his best prop is going under on 34.5 yards being his longest completion. He's only managed one of those completions this long this season. That was on a line of scrimmage pass to Crowder. That was for 0 yards. And then he broke a couple tackles and ran it 69 yards for a touchdown. So the Broncos, with their injuries, they still have only given up 2 plays this long all year. And that Chase Claypool 80-something yard touchdown, he might have gotten away with a push on one of them. So even though this Broncos defense hasn't been great, they have been able to stop long plays like this, and the Jets just aren't doing it. So I would look under on Darnold's longest completion and over on Rippon's. Then you mentioned Braxton Berrios. His over-under is 3.5 on receptions and 42.5 on receiving yards. If Jamison Crowder plays, you have to hammer those unders because he didn't have a role in week 1, and Crowder went out and got, I think, 8 catches and 100 and something yards. So if Crowder's back, you have to figure he inherits that number 1 role as Darnold's trusted weapon, and Berrios is probably going to disappear. So I would look to the under on those two as well.
Yeah, I mean, Braxton Berrios wasn't a guy until everyone else was injured or ruled out for whatever reason. I would take the over on Sam Darnold rushing yards, 8.5. I feel like you just need one scramble. Now it's not a likely over because it's 8.5. I mean, like he doesn't scramble a bunch, but I think over Sam Darnold rushing yards, I don't hate.
Yeah, he periodically, a couple of times a year, he gets to, he gets above that number. He gets to 17, 20, somewhere around there, but it's not a big part of his game. It just has to be on a scramble. And the Broncos haven't allowed a lot of that this year, but they haven't really played rushing quarterbacks. Tannehill was able to get over that number. I believe he had 17 yards on 4 carries or something in week 1, and the other 2 quarterbacks didn't do any type of running against this defense. So, yeah, that's kind of, I was a little hesitant to go over under there. I would probably lean to the under, but just because he historically gets to like 4, 5, 7, but doesn't quite get to that level. But I could see
what about Frank Gore over rushing attempts 14.5? And that's just a pure play on Adam Gase being an idiot.
Yeah, I actually wrote this down as one to talk about. I would go over 14.5 rush attempts. Yeah. He's topped this 2 straight weeks.
21 the other day. What the hell is happening?
He had 21 for 66, and then he had like 16. 2 straight weeks he's done it. Jets were getting blown out in those situations. This is a game where it could be closer, so why would he abandon the run? It just makes sense that he's going to keep running it. So, no, Bell still isn't healthy. I mean, maybe Levante Bellamy, they elevate him from the practice squad. Maybe he gets a little more work and it takes away from Gore, but Gore is like Frankenstein's monster at this point. You just can't stop him. He's just going to get the ball and get a ton of carries.
Gore is Adam Gase's, that Seinfeld episode where he's driving through where George is driving through the parking lot?
Mm-hmm.
George. Speaking of George, my dog George is here is being annoying. That's Frank Gore. He's like, you know what? I'm going to run Frank Gore 20 times a game. You going to stop me? I don't think so. I dare you to stop me. Come on, fire me. I dare you. You won't do it.
You're going to stop me? Actually, yes, we're going to stop you. All right, I'll do it anyway.
That's right. All right, let's get to DFS. Oh, my goodness. What do you do in DFS in this game? Because I think you have to play both defenses and the kickers.
Actually, yeah. I think the Darnold would be the captain, the traditional captain you go with if you're just trying to get over like the 50-50 cash line. I'm not going to trust Rippon versus what I think is going to be an attacking defense, so Darnold's the play. I don't love either running back. It's been a while since Darnold's had a good game, but he has flashed in the past. He had 4 touchdowns in a game against Washington last year, so we know it is in there. So maybe this situation just helps him out, but I do agree. Go with the defenses. I'm doing a lineup with the Jets defense as my captain, hoping that they just attack Rippon to the point where they're getting a defensive touchdown or 2, several sacks, several turnovers. It's only $6,000 to do him as a captain, so you can do whatever else you want in that lineup. But if you want to go for that high GPP total where you can take a lineup that nobody has, my lineup right now has the Jets, as captain, Broncos defense also in there, both kickers, McManus and Ficken, and then you just take one, a player on either side, hoping they catch a touchdown. Mine are Crowder and Fant right now. So you do that, you're spending like half the budget that they give you, and you're having a lineup that a lot of people aren't going to have.
This DFS slate is hilarious. I mean, Your number 5 price player on this slate is Blake Bortles.
Yeah, they do
Think
that
about it.
with backup quarterbacks a lot, just in case they play.
Sure. But yeah, they said he won't come out and play. Crowder is questionable. He's 8,200. Is there anybody? I mean, I really think that you should go McManus, Ficken, Jets defense, Broncos. Maybe I'm wrong. And this game just goes way over. And there is like, I think you know what? I'm like, my brain is Captain Chalk. So I think that will be the popular play, because you can do whatever you want with those. And then you have 1,400 per pop to play with. So you can go Darnold Driscoll or Darnold Gordon, Darnold Rippin, whatever you want. Darnold Bortles, Darnold Fant Rippin, whatever you want to do. Is there a path here where this is a shootout? I mean, like, should people who are playing DFS consider the path where there is a shootout and go just total oppo of what might be the norm?
I think that it's hard to see both these teams having success offensively just because of what we've seen this year. But if you do want to go the contrarian play, you take one of them. You stack. You say, hey, Rippin knows what he's doing. You know, Chris Rapasso loved Rippin in 2019 coming in the draft. We do a breakdown of quarterback skills, and he had Rippin, you know, right there with with several of the big quarterbacks and a lot of these skills. So if you do like Rippin and you think he's going to come out of a good game, go ahead and stack Rippin and Fant and Judy together with Broncos kicker and the Broncos defense, and then you're not looking for much from the Jets. Or you flip it the other way, you put Darnold at captain, stack him with Crowder and Herndon and the Jets defense, and the Jets kicker, you take it that way. So I think you're really not looking to go for the kind of thing you were with the Ravens Chiefs, trying to get players on both sides. You can attack one of these offenses, hope they have a good game, like that Dolphins Jaguars game we saw. We just kind of took the wrong offense there. We thought the Jaguars, let's stack that one.
Yeah.
If you stack the Dolphins, you had a really good game with Fitzpatrick as your captain.
Yeah, if you included Minshew in your DFS lineup, you were dead off the bat. And I mean, look, that's how it works. I would guess nobody takes Rippin. So I think you make Rippin your captain. He has a good game. He hits Fant for like 3 long plays and Jerry Jeudy. I mean, all of a sudden you got a little something cooking. All right. Anything else you want to add to this stew of a game?
Can't wait for it. Love it. It's football. It's October. It's not going to complain about it. I don't care what
I said. I won't complain about football.
And you know what? It's Thursday night football. It's not like we're not used to having terrible games. We've all got to watch Titans Jaguars in color rush uniforms every single year for 4 years.
Oh, the Jets Bills. Ugh.
Yeah, the Jets Bills is always a bad one.
Like Christmas
so, yeah.
one. And by the way, let's not pretend like Monday night was a fun game. That game stunk. Lamar Jackson was awful.
Yeah, it was it did not live up to expectations, unfortunately. But that's the way it goes with some of these games.
All right, go bet the prop. More points in Jets Broncos. No, don't bet this. But Jets Broncos, more points than Ravens and Chiefs, or maybe more points than just the Ravens. R.J. White, always a pleasure, buddy.